town in Hollywood. And then back on the East Coast, protesters Trump Tower, remember this scene? They shut down traffic in Midtown Manhattan. And who can forget the Women's March the day after the inauguration?
I am a nasty woman. I'm not as nasty as a man who looks like he bathes in Cheeto dust. I feel Hitler in these streets.
Well, she was ahead of the time on the Nazi reference. Well, participants are passionate. You got to hand it to them. And some are old, some are young, and they're pretty organized. And sometimes celebrities attend or donate millions to their pet causes that spill out onto all the streets. Because when they write a check, it means they care. And come on, let's face it, it ain't bad PR either. And then violence at some anti-Trump rallies has happened too. Remember, at Berkeley, Antifa showed up, and they showed us just what they're capable of. No debate allowed, no diversity of opinion tolerated, ever. These protesters want to make it impossible for the president to travel, certainly to places like California, and they tried to do that during the campaign. And sometimes his supporters were harassed, and others were actually assaulted. And now the Occupy ICE protesters want to, again, make it impossible for our immigration investigators to do their jobs. Well, they managed to shut down one office of ICE in Portland, Oregon, for more than a week. This is a Democratic Socialists of America group, and they blocked entry into the federal facility.
Keep families together. Keep families. Stop them. Stop kidnapping kids. Stop kidnapping children, you Nazis.
You work at a concentration camp.
You work in a concentration camp, you Nazi.
Doesn't that look like a Saturday Night Live skit at some point? I mean, it looks ridiculous. Dozens of people today here in Washington, D.C. shut down a government meeting. And in Grand Rapids, Michigan, they did the same thing, protested a contract that ICE had to house detainees in a local jail. And more in Washington, D.C., that also saw these protests where thousands of women urged for the abolishment of ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement. Now, they occupied the Senate Hart Office building, and they joined themselves together with all these liberal politicians. It was like, again, it was like everybody looks like Jiffy Pop. They have the tinfoil robes and the chants that don't really rhyme, but the Capitol Police arrested nearly 600 of the chanting throng. And the D.C. ICE protests were led by pro-Palestinian activist, you've seen her before, Linda Sarsour.
Marching is important, that rallying is important, but it is not enough under a fascist administration. Are you ready to sacrifice just a little bit? People want to tell us when to protest, how to be civil, how uncivil it is to have billions of dollars to build prison camps on military bases, but not have money to give clean water to the people of
As Islamic countries continue to subjugate women and girls, as honor killings go unprosecuted across the globe, it's curious that Sarsour would lecture us on human rights abuses against women in the United States. Now, by the way, this is the same woman who, in addition to her hate toward the Jewish state in Israel, once tweeted out the following. She tried to delete a lot of these, but they were captured. Underwear bomber was CIA all along. Why did I already know that? Shame on us scaring the American people. And oh, and this gem, I love this one. How many times do we have to tell white women that we do not need to be saved by them? Is there code language I need to use to get through? Well, here's a question for Linda. Is she really worried about kids at the border? Or is her primary concern burnishing her own brand as this global human rights superheroine? Or maybe it's just kind of part of a larger political agenda? Yeah, probably all of the above. Sarsour is arrested regularly. It's kind of like a hobby. She was arrested outside Speaker Ryan's office back in March. outside Trump Tower last year, and she wears it all as a badge of honor. They release them quickly anyway. And of course, she relishes all the media coverage. Now, you got to understand this. She wants your daughters, your wives, your sisters, and our students to join her in what is ultimately a deeply anti-free market, anti-rule of law, anti-American founding mindset. She and thousands like her they're really, really good at projecting anger and outrage. You know, I was thinking about this today. To what end? What's the game plan here for making America better, for making it stronger, more economically prosperous? I guess freebies for everybody from the government, guaranteed wages, guaranteed college education, guaranteed universal preschool, guaranteed, I don't know, everything. Open borders, more abortions. I mean, where does it all go? Well, I have a question. Is this message really getting through to younger generations of women? Republicans better hope not. But in the meantime, they better have a plan of their own to reach young people looking to engage politically. They're looking for meaning. And I don't mean, you know, just people sitting around, a bunch of conservatives sitting around reading position papers of think tank fellows or quoting the Federalist Papers as much as we all love the Federalist Papers. I'm thinking of these kids who join these social media flash protests and then they check their feeds on their cell phone for news updates throughout the day. Those are the people we have to reach. Of course, our country has had a long and proud history of civil disobedience and marches that have galvanized positive change, from Civil Rights March, of course, 1964, to the March for Life. You have that every year in January. And our First Amendment right to seek government redress always has to be protected and defended. And even if that message offends and shocks our conscience, we must protect the right to speak out. But at the same time, what we should never encourage are threats, implicit or explicit, against our public officials, as we saw from Maxine Waters last weekend. So maybe we should reconsider, just to kind of elevate it a little bit, what we're writing on those signs that we hold up to the cameras, what we're screaming in people's faces, you know, how we speak to each other. It's all gotten too nasty. And everyone seems really, really angry all the time.
Mr. President, in case that you don't realize, this is America, and the American people have zero tolerance for you. We need to fight for justice in our country. That is not negotiable. Keep pushing, because the American people is here. This is America, Mr. President. Zero tolerance for you.
And we're going to join the law enforcement presser in progress right now up in Maryland.
We
Let's
know
watch.
through the investigation that there are no further threats to the Capital Gazette newspaper or to the area around 888 Bestgate Road. What I also would like to tell you is that the Anne Arundel County Police Department, with our partners throughout Anne Arundel County government, Annapolis City, the state, we work very well together. We have the best interest and well-being of our victims in mind. We have a warm line for Anne Arundel County. That number is 410-768-5522. And I would urge any persons who witnessed anything that occurred this evening, were walking by the address of 888, was near the address, who just need someone to speak to, I would urge them to call that line. Jen Corbin will have additional staff ready for this evening for any influx of phone calls, and I'm going to allow her to explain the warm line and the issues behind that in a second. I want to end on this. We have a responsibility and an obligation to these victims. Everyone in the Anne Arundel County Police Department and all of our allied agencies, all of our government officials, we are deeply saddened by what happened today. We're deeply saddened that we had to make those notifications, and we're deeply saddened that a person had to take this into his own hands, and this is a result. So I'm going to bring Jen Corbin up, and we're going to talk about the warm line real quick.
Can you please tell the names again?
I'll make sure everybody gets it.
So good evening. Just to kind of explain what's happened, my staff has been here since this occurred. We have been involved in the reunification of the witnesses to their families, along with notifying the families of the people who've lost their lives. For the warm line, basically what we're asking is anyone who spoke with us today or anybody who maybe did not make contact with us through investigations, that they can reach out through that number. We have licensed clinicians on 24 hours a day. We will come out and help you in any way possible. What I'm going to ask is that we're not using that number to call for information on the investigation. That is not what this number is for. This number is for people who have witnessed and might need assistance getting through the trauma piece of this. We are not asking you to call and ask questions about which family members are where, or us to give comments on the investigation. We are here to help. So that number is for family and witnesses to call in. We will be available all night long. We can come out if people need it, or discuss how people are doing by phone. Thank you.
Okay, so again, that's the information that we have to hold true to what we said in the beginning of this. As soon as we have information, we'll get it out. So that was the purpose of calling this press conference. Again, that warm line number is 410-768-5522. So that's the number to call for anyone that needs assistance and needs to talk to us for support. Thank you. Yeah. So, yep. So the first is Wendy Winters. That's spelled W-E-N-D-I. Last name is Winters, W-I-N-T-E-R-S.
Can we get ages too?
Yeah, this is all that I have at this point. Second is Rebecca Smith, R-E-B-E-C-C-A, Smith, common spelling. First name is Robert, and the last name is Henry, Ida, Adam, Sam, Ocean, Nora. Again, that's H-I-A-A-S-O-N. Gerald Fishman, G-E-R-A-L-D. Last name Fishman, F-I-S-C-H-M-A-N. And last is John McNamara, J-O-H-N, M-C-N-E-M-A-R-A.
Were they all journalists?
It's my understanding that all are employees of the Capital Gazette.
Capital N on McNamara? M-C-N-E.
M-C-N-E-M-A. I guess is that R-A? Yeah, capital N. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. The third name, Robert Henry Hyatt.
Nope. Nope. Henry was the H. So it's Robert, and then the last name is H-I-A-A-S-O-N.
Thank you.
Yep. So again, as information becomes available, we'll make sure we get it out. But again, we don't anticipate having more information until the morning. We just thought that it was very important to get the information out about the victims to you guys so their families can begin that healing process. So our thoughts and prayers go out to their families, the victims, their friends, and we'll have an update for you in the morning. Thank you very much.
Again, our hearts and our prayers are with those victims just identified. We're going to continue to monitor this for more developments. Other networks are publishing photos. We have not confirmed those yet. We're not going to do that here on Fox News. But let's get back to the focus of the angle. Now, Robert Padillo is a civil rights attorney, as well as New York Times #1 best-selling author and hit documentary filmmaker whose new film, The Death of a Nation, is out August 3rd. And we're going to see a new sneak peek of it later on in this segment. Dinesh D'Souza is also with us, and his book comes out, same title, on July 31st. Gentlemen, first, very briefly, comments about this horrific shooting tonight. Dinesh, we now have learned of the victims. Looks like this killer had some grievance, had filed a defamation action against the newspaper, widely reported tonight. There's a Twitter feed that looks like it could be the individual, but again, we're not confirming that. Your thoughts tonight?
Well, I think we're seeing a tragic sort of vendetta played out before the whole country to see. In an age of media, it is not entirely surprising, although very disturbing, to see people who have grievances look for this kind of media stage in which to enact this ritual of death. I don't know if it's driven partly by a desire to get attention, but it's a dementia in our society, and I'm glad that we are roundly condemning it. I'm also glad that we're distancing it from false political attributions, which it does not seem to be relevant in this particular case.
Right. And Robert, again, a horrific tragedy for the country, for the community, for the media. And we'll learn more about this individual. I don't even want to use his name, but we'll learn more about it as the days go on. But again, you just want to just sit down and cry at some point.
Well, you know, I don't think it's a situation where we have to sit down and cry. It's a situation where we have to reevaluate what we are and who we are as Americans. Fundamentally speaking, this is just another example of why we need to encourage and support the Second Amendment and allow more people to defend themselves in this situation. Even with police responding in 60 seconds, 5 people lost their lives. If individuals had the ability to protect themselves, then maybe this tragedy and many others would not happen. I'm a member of the National African American Gun Owners Association, and I think one of the cornerstones of our democracy is the ability for individuals to protect themselves from mad people like this. You can't change individuals' actions. All you can change is your ability to defend yourself.
All right. Let's go back to the focus of the angle, which we didn't get to finish. But suffice it to say, the nation has been locked down, at least immigration enforcement in some parts of the country has been locked down by these protests that are run, at least on the West Coast, some on the East Coast, by the Democratic Socialists of America. This after a candidate for Congress unseated the number 4 in Democratic leadership in Queens 2 nights ago. Dinesh, your reaction to now an embrace of open borders, lawlessness, and the abolishment of ICE?
I find it incredible that a major party in the United States is essentially embracing lawlessness, in this case, lawlessness on the border, almost as a matter of strategy. Now, I'm a legal immigrant. I'm a non-white immigrant. I come from a country with 1 billion people. If we had open borders, probably half of them would like to come to the United States, but they can't. Why? Because they don't have a contiguous border. They can't just jump over a fence. It's a long way. And the second is their rules. There's a line. I stood in line. I went through the line. So really what the illegals are demanding is preferential treatment over the millions of other people who have to play by the rules to get here. And the fact that the Democratic Party is unwilling to draw a line between the legal and the illegal. In fact, routinely in the media, the term illegal and the term immigrant are conflated, as if an illegal is an immigrant. But illegals are not immigrants. Illegals are lawbreakers.
Robert, the language today at this protest in Washington, where they took over the Senate Hart Office building, but they met outside of the Senate office building first, and Linda Sarsour, the Palestinian activist, a lot of people think she's anti-Semitic, anti-Israel. She got up and she talked, and others talked about white privilege and so forth. We'll play a little snippet of this.
Let's get down to business. I'm going to bring up to the stage Lisa Fithium, who's going to start the direct action training for folks who were not with us yesterday.
There's different kinds of fear. There's real fear, but a lot of folks, particularly folks with white skin privilege, have a lot of irrational fears.
White-skinned people have a lot of irrational fears. It's all virtue signaling from college campus lingo. Dinesh and I saw a lot of that back in the 80s at Dartmouth, but it's been ramped up quite a bit. Robert, your take on where this is all going? You heard the training manual being referenced in the speech there. We have the direct action training. They train people on how to get arrested. That's nothing new. I guess the civil rights movement did that as well in the 60s. But it seems a lot angrier and a lot more rabid.
Well, I don't think it's so much angry or more rabid, but we have more media now to concentrate on it. Back then, we had 3 news networks reporting on things. Now we have a 24-hour-a-day news cycle that reports on things instantly, and not including the internet. But what I think we have to do is not discount these protesters, not discount their needs and their grievances. One of the mistakes the Democratic Party made was in 2008 and 2009, while the Tea Party was rising, you saw liberal commentators on the other networks making the same assumptions about them, calling those people crazy, insane, everything along the lines. And then 10 years later, after losing 1,000+ elections, Republicans and the right control all facets of the United States government and most state governments. So we can't simply ignore the individuals who are out there protesting. What we need to do is engage across party lines, have the president, have the Republican Party lay out what their immigration strategy is, what their policy procedures
what's their strategy?
are. What exactly
I didn't get to this in the angle. What is the strategy of Linda Sarsour, who has tweeted the most hateful, horrific things in her career? Okay, she doesn't have problems with tweeting that. She deletes some of them, and everybody forgets about it. And Dinesh, you have this film coming out on August 3rd that deals with a lot of the hate of the past, and it's like a historical foundation in many ways of what's happening today. Your reaction, then we're going to play a little clip from your preview of your film that no one else has seen. But your reaction to her in particular and her vitriol.
Well, look at the reason that they keep using the terms like racism and fascism and white privilege and so on is they're trying to make, they can't fault Trump for being anti-black. He's not. And so they're trying to get him on this immigration issue as well as on the security issue as being some kind of a racist. Now, the important thing to realize, Laura, is that the vast, vast majority of legal immigrants who come to this country are non-white. Most of us today come from Asia, from Africa, from South America, and so the line that Trump is drawing is not a racial line at all. It's a line between the legal and the illegal. The comparison to fascism is absurd because Hitler was not concerned with illegal immigrants. The Jews were citizens of Germany. They had been in Germany for a long time. Hitler was drawing an internal line between, if you will, what he considered to be first-class citizens, the Nordic Germans, and he wanted to make Jews into second-class citizens or worse.
No, the comparison is embarrassing. The comparison is insulting. It's so ridiculous on so many levels. It's infuriating. But I want to play a clip. This is from the preview from your film, The Death of a Nation, coming out August 3rd. Nobody's seen this yet. Let's watch.
Lincoln was elected to unite a country and stop slavery. Democrats smeared him, went to war against him. Now their target is Trump.
America was never free. Slavery, genocide, and war.
Donald Trump wins the presidency. So help me God.
They say he's killing America.
There will be a vote to impeach.
They say he's a racist.
This was a white lash.
And a fascist. Who are the real racists?
Well, that goes right to the heart of what we're talking about in these protests. Dinesh, where can we watch the whole trailer, the entire trailer?
Just go to my website, DineshD'Souza.com. The movie also has a website, deathofanationmovie.com. We have the full-length trailer, and mark your calendars for the first weekend of August.
All right. And, Robert, as we close this segment out, do you feel like the protesters throw around Nazi, racist, concentration camp, internment camp, fascist too glibly, too regularly, too frequently, and so all of the criticism, whether maybe some of it's merited, of conservatives just kind of melts away, and it kind of people just, it becomes white noise at some point, and I don't mean that racially. I'm talking about white noise.
Well, I think a big chunk of it is that the hyperbolic nature of American political discourse has grown to a point that it's X'd itself out. Remember during the Obamacare debate, we talked about death panels, fascism, and a new form of slavery because Obama wanted to give people health care. So let's stop and take down the rhetoric on both sides and get back to actual policy discussions, because if you get to the root of things, about 90% of people agree on most issues. It's the 5% on each end of the political spectrum that are driving the debate. We got to get to the point where we can all talk and find real solutions.
I like that ending. Thanks so much to both of you. And moments away, tempers explode over a Russia investigation that never seems to end. The best exchanges from FBI Director Chris Wray, Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein before Congress, next. Oh, you guys see those fireworks during the questioning of the deputy AG in that House hearing today? Rod Rosenstein has been overseeing the Russia investigation forever, since Jeff Sessions' notorious recusal, and GOP lawmakers didn't hesitate to vent their frustrations with his handling of the probe.
You wrote the memo saying that Comey should be fired, and you signed the FISA extension for Carter Page. So my question is to you, it seems like you should be recused from this more so than Jeff Sessions, just because you were involved in making decisions affecting both prongs of this investigation. Why haven't you done that?
Congressman, I can assure you that if it were appropriate for me to recuse, I'd be more than happy.
If you have evidence of wrongdoing by any member of the Trump campaign, present it to the damn grand jury. If you have evidence that this president acted inappropriately, present it to the American people. Whatever you got, finish it the hell up, because this country is being torn apart.
I think the best thing we can do is finish it appropriately and reach a conclusion. And I certainly agree with you, sir. The people should not jump to conclusions without seeing the evidence.
Did you read the FISA application before you signed it?
I'm not going to comment about any FISA application.
So
why are you keeping information from Congress?
Congressman, I'm not keeping any information from Congress that it's appropriate. Your statement that I'm personally keeping information from you, trying to conceal information.
You're the boss, Mr. Rosenstein.
That's correct. And my job is to make sure that we respond to your concerns. We have, sir. So I appreciate your concerns.
Again, I think the House of Representatives is going to say otherwise.
But your use of this to attack me personally.
Why did you? I was wrong. You got 7 days to get your act together, and I want to know why you won't give us what we've asked for.
Sir, I certainly hope that your colleagues are not under that impression. That is not accurate, sir. And
it is accurate. We have caught you hiding
Mr. Chairman, can we allow the witness to answer?
Anyone else get nervous during that exchange? I was very uncomfortable. Joining me now for analysis, great panel, of course, Fox News contributor, former federal prosecutor Andy McCarthy, just wrote a great piece, by the way, former Whitewater Deputy Independent Counsel Saul Weisenberg, and former FBI National Spokesperson John Iannarelli. Great to see all of you. Saul, let's start with you. You were annoyed by Jim Jordan's questioning, which you found to be badgering. And I got to say, I was watching in my radio studio, and I kind of winced because we have to interrupt the witness. It makes your case not look that strong. Just let him answer the question, then have a quick follow-up. But I think he's worried about not having enough time. They have such limited amount of time that he probably got frustrated. But was that a fatal mistake on the part of Jordan?
I don't think it's a fatal mistake. I just think he's, he went to school at the Teddy Kennedy School of Congressional Cross-Examination. You ask a hostile question, and then you immediately interrupt the person that you're questioning. So my objection is not to the substance of what he asked. He's allowed to ask anything he wants. It is to the badgering. But the larger question here about this whole exercise of bashing Rosenstein is something that Andy has spoken to several times in his columns, Andy McCarthy, and spoke to it a couple of days ago. President Trump has the absolute authority to order Rod Rosenstein to turn over anything and everything to the Congress. And if he did it and Rosenstein didn't want to do it, he could resign, or if he refused to do it, the president could fire him. Why hasn't he done that?
Let's ask Andy that. Andy, what's the delay? Why hasn't President Trump just said, turn the documents over? That's not prejudicing the case, or he doesn't look like he's defensive. Just, it's transparency. Why won't the president say to Rosenstein, enough of these continuing resolutions that they keep passing that are meaningless in Congress? If they pass a resolution, oh, we're compelling you to release the document. They're not going to release the documents. That was clear today to me. So why won't the president demand that they be finally released? Get this thing on the road. Show on the road.
It's a great question, Lauren. I appreciate Saul bringing it up. The great irony, I thought, of the hearing was my friend Jim Jordan really laying into Rod Rosenstein, saying, you're the boss, these people work for you. And, the elephant in the room is that Rosenstein works for Trump. And precisely the point you make is true. Trump can order this. So what we understand is that he's gotten advice, I don't think it's particularly good advice, that because he's been under investigation for obstruction, and because the critics of Trump have conflated in the public mind the Republican Congress's pursuit of what went on with the agents who conducted these investigations and Mueller's investigation, that if Trump acts to force disclosure and help Congress here, he's effectively obstructing justice. Now, I think that's nuts. I don't see a legal obstruction case.
I get it. Yeah.
But I think that's where they're at.
That's what they're worried about. John, there were so many things in this hearing that were wild. One of them was when he was asked, Rosenstein was asked, you know, what about this FISA warrant? And he wouldn't answer the question about whether he read it. And then he said, well, this, you know, Strzok didn't brief me, and he went through the others. Moyers didn't brief me. But he wouldn't answer the question about, did you actually read this FISA warrant? And he kept saying, well, you basically don't understand. And I also said, I don't supervise, you know, I have 100,000 employees. So he wasn't looking over the shoulder of Peter Strzok at every moment, but he said he wants to root out any corruption that's there.
If he had read the warrant, he would have said, I read the warrant. He obviously didn't read the warrant, or maybe glanced over it so long ago he can't remember the specifics, which is why he's not commenting. I'll tell you, this whole process is moving so incredibly slow. At this point, DOJ has to stop with the glacial performance and recognize the American people want to know what's going on. Speed it up already. Let's get the answers out there.
And Trey Gowdy went just crazy on that. He's like, he decided, Saul, not to ask a question, but to take his time to make sure that he got quoted and the soundbite was used on most evening newscasts and cable and all over media, social media today. Get this thing wrapped up. What has taken so long? Give us the documents. And then there was a moment when Jordan was pressing another matter about Peter Strzok. I want to play it and have Saul's reaction. Let's watch.
Why'd you tell Peter Strzok not to answer our questions yesterday? When I asked Peter Strzok if he'd ever communicated with Glenn Simpson, he gave us the answer he gave us dozens of times. On advice of FBI counsel, I can't answer that question. Why couldn't he answer that question?
Mr. Jordan, I appreciate your sincere concerns, but I didn't give Peter Strzok any instructions. How do I know, sir? I mean, you interviewed Mr. Strzok. I didn't, so I can't
Works for you. Doesn't work for us.
So, I don't think Rosenstein came off well today at all. I thought he came off as very defensive, very flip, but he played the victim card. You're personally attacking me. You're mean to me in the media. Like, welcome to the big leagues, buddy. You know, you're deputy AG. It's pretty hot right now. But he kept saying, well, there's all these people who work in the Department of Justice. This is the biggest case, the Russia case, but the Hillary email case. These two things dovetailed together because of this one agent. He had a duty to find out what happened.
Well, keep in mind here, I think he did better than you think he did. But keep in mind two really important things. I'm glad you focused on this because Rosenstein made 2 points. Number one, I'm not the one, and nobody at DOJ. As opposed to FBI, which is in the DOJ, but nobody in Rosenstein's shop told Peter Strzok what to say or not to say. And also, he made it very clear he had nothing to do with the redactions, including this latest outrageous redaction that they didn't find out about until the Inspector General's report came out about the "will stop him." He didn't have anything to do with that. When he found out and when he was told there were redactions, he brought in this U.S. attorney from Chicago. But it brings up an interesting point. There appears that for many years, on and off, there's been a rogue element in FBI leadership that obstructs these kind of investigations. And obviously, it's outrageous that text message was not sent to the Congress. And the question is, what's going to be done about it? Because I think DOJ should do something about that.
Yeah, Andy, are there any repercussions for what was done? I mean, redacting, don't worry, basically, I'll take care of it, meaning it's not going to be a problem. Trump's not going to be a problem. And that doesn't go to the Congress?
Of course. And, you know, this is the problem I think that Rosenstein has. I think, for example, I wondered if he had ever prepared a witness before, because a lot of times it seemed to me his answers were sensible, but the smirk on his face was really off-putting. But on this particular, he says that he strongly supports the disciplining of agents who've committed misconduct. He endorsed IG Horowitz's report. But, you know, you got to put your money where your mouth is, and it's impossible to be credible and say at the same time, we're giving you all this cooperation, and when we find somebody who withholds stuff, we don't do anything to discipline them.
Yeah, John, you know what I'm looking for some of these officials, why isn't he angry about this? Like, he seems it's all about him. Like, you're mean to me, you were mean to me in the press, and their personal attacks. If this happened at the FBI, which it did, you had these people burrowed into the system who hated Trump. They wanted to make sure that Hillary didn't ultimately get prosecuted, and they were going to make sure, by hell or high water, that Trump was going to have problems. Why isn't this guy, Rosenstein, angry?
I don't know, because I'll tell you, in the FBI, I held a lot of leadership positions. No matter what somebody did underneath me, I'm the boss. I'm responsible for it. And you better believe I would have been angry after the fact when I confronted whoever did what.
Yeah, it was just, the buck stops here. No, I guess not. It's like, oh, I have too many employees.
Well, they let him out. They led Strzok out. Don't forget, a couple weeks ago, he was let out, escorted out of the office.
It's about time.
So, yeah, but he still works there, though. I mean, we don't know. I mean, it's not like he's gone. He's sort of over there.
Yeah, like, is Bob Mueller chasing facts, or is he just looking for some inconvenient timeline for the president? I ask that because Bloomberg is reporting tonight that the special counsel will decide whether to issue indictments for collusion with Russia by this fall. That's right before the midterm elections. As you heard moments ago, Trey Gowdy wants this, quote, wrapped the hell up. And it seems the American public agrees. A Harvard-Harris poll recently found that 58% of Americans want this probe wrapped up in 6 months, with a whopping 30% who want it stopped immediately. Let's discuss with former advisor to Donald Trump, author of the book Stone's Rules, Roger Stone, and Fox News contributor Byron York, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Roger, we're going to get to the issue of your associate being subpoenaed in a moment. But first, this Bloomberg story about the timing of when this will be wrapped up. Very curious.
Well, and 2 days ago, there was a story that said that the special counsel was now going to focus on Russian collusion. Really? What's he been doing for 2 years? We're almost at the half point in Donald Trump's first term, and he's still under investigation with no charges of Russian collusion by him or his family or his campaign brought, because there is no evidence of such. This is an effort to undo what they couldn't do at the ballot box in 2016. It is a naked partisan effort to remove the president.
Byron, what do you make of the public souring on this investigation at this point?
Well, I think part of it is just the fact that it hasn't come out. There's been no evidence to come out about collusion, and part of it is the president's campaign against him. The Rudy Giuliani campaign has been actually quite effective. Now, on the November thing, there's a very specific Justice Department policy about issuing prosecutions that might affect an election.
Last time, remember? That's what Comey talked about.
That's not done, and there's no date specific set, but it is late June now, and the idea that he would issue some sort of indictment in the fall before this election, no, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and now they're talking about, you can't name a Supreme Court justice until the investigation wraps up.
It's got to be an odd-numbered year, apparently. It can't be an election year.
Roger, the news came out today that your associate, one of your associates, has been subpoenaed by Robert Mueller, an aide who worked apparently briefly for you during the 2016 election. Thoughts?
Well, first of all, the witch hunt continues. Andrew Miller, who hasn't worked for me since 2013, 3 years ago, did come help me at the Republican National Convention for a week. By the way, he's not a Trump supporter. He is a registered libertarian and active supporter of Governor Gary Johnson in 2016, supported the Johnson-Weld ticket. This is a fishing expedition. But if he didn't work for me other than at the convention, it just kind of reinforces my view that this is some kind of effort to frame me for some extraneous offense to silence me or to get me to testify against the president. The story here, Lori, is not so much the subpoena.
Yeah, what did he do for you? Why did you have a Gary Johnson guy work for you for a week? I'm not following that.
Well, when he worked for me, and it was 3 years ago, he did scheduling. He traveled with me as a wingman. He did some IT work. But again, he remains a good friend of mine. But I thought this was about Russian collusion and the 2016 election. The story here is not so much the subpoena, but the fact that he is going to seek through his lawyers to quash it on broad constitutional grounds, as I understand it. It's a violation of his Fourth Amendment rights. This is an effort to take my associates and browbeat them to get one of them to say something negative about me.
This is the most heavy-handed, classic prosecutorial tactic. Take people who are low on the totem pole, turn the screws on them, and turn them so hard that they'll like do anything to make it stop because they're afraid. I mean, they have money. They're not going to be. I mean, Roger spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to defend himself against Lord knows what. And someone on MSNBC tonight, apparently Byron, said that Roger is the last person to be interviewed by Mueller.
And look for crimes that have nothing to do
with Russia,
with what you're actually investigating. I will say, though, this challenge that Miller is going to make to Mueller's appointment is another one. Paul Manafort's tried to challenge it. They're doing it on two slightly different grounds, but basically saying that Mueller's office is unconstitutional.
That's the long story.
And they're not going to win with that.
No.
Manafort has already lost in the courts, and this one will probably not work either.
Roger, tonight Michael Cohen put out a tweet, and he said, "My family and I are owed an apology after 2 years, 15 hours of testimony before House and Senate under oath, producing more than 1,000 documents, misreports 15 allegations about my entire statement must be quoted. I had nothing to do with Russia collusion or meddling." Any thoughts about that?
Well, Michael Cohen deserves his day in court as well. I've read a dozen stories. He's going to plead to this. He's going to flip over that. We haven't seen anything yet. So this story remains unwritten. I feel badly for Michael Cohen.
I do too.
Because he has millions of dollars worth of legal fees, and they seek to destroy him as well. Yet he hasn't been charged with any crime.
Yeah, and the public's turning on this. The public is turning against Mueller, and it's turning against this investigation. We got to go, guys, unfortunately. But forget that blue wave. We're going to tell you why President Trump suddenly talking up a red wave in midterm elections. Top pollsters will be with us in a moment. You won't believe what they found out about immigration. Coming up. President Trump, of course, referring to the stunning primary wins by far-left Democrats, which could split the party. And this while GOP voters may be motivated to turn out on Election Day to ensure that the president's Supreme Court nominee is confirmed. Let's analyze all of this. Suddenly shifting picture with Republican pollster Frank Luntz and Democratic pollster Mark Penn. It's so great to have both of you on. We could do a whole hour on where we are right now. Mark, you have done very interesting polling on immigration that I just read about tonight. I saw you on you were on the Hill talking about it. But a question about separating families, and what did you find out?
Well, look, 88% did not want families separated. But the underlying attitude, 70% said they want tougher enforcement of our immigration laws. So this was a wrong policy. But the underlying notion of the nation is that we've got to have borders here while we're also good to DACA recipients and treat families appropriately. And, that explains why Trump's ratings did not go down in my poll. He actually went up to 47, despite this controversy. But I'll tell you, there may not be a blue wave, but there's definitely a blue edge. Because while people may fear that the Democrats are moving too far to the left, the Republicans have no leadership and no message, and still have a pretty good edge here for the Democrats going into the midterms.
Why do they have no leadership? Donald Trump is a leader. Last night, he's like, we're gonna have a red wave. Frank, you've been doing some interesting polling on trade. He's in Wisconsin, the big Foxconn deal today. Thousands of jobs in Wisconsin. They're worried about Harley-Davidson, but we got Foxconn.
You look at the unemployment levels at record lows, Latinos and African Americans. You look at more money in their paychecks. People vote their pockets, and they vote their wallet, and they vote their bank accounts. And all of them are in favor of the GOP. But what I'm looking at in terms of immigration, it's not just about border security. In the end, do we feel safer as a country? And
safety,
it's
homeland.
Safety, security, and a sense of well-being.
And your poll question, which I found most interesting, is that 84% of respondents said that you should notify authorities when, crimes are committed, illegal immigrants, people in custody, keep them in custody. And I think most people want people united in their home countries, keep family together in their home countries.
Absolutely. They said two things. One, if people are arrested, given a choice between the authorities notifying ICE or being prohibited, 84% they should be notified.
Yeah,
and second, they said by 2 to 1, What should happen if families are here illegally? They should be sent home. And that's the general attitude that Americans have about immigration. Tougher borders with compassion and done the right way.
And Frank, we talked about this before, but the Democrats, they're looking for something in the trick bag to use against Trump, and they've tried everything. I mean, he's a demagogue, he's authoritarian, he's Hitler, he's Nazi, he's fascist. They tried everything. And his numbers were 47% in Harvard-Harris yesterday.
His numbers are higher than Barack Obama at this moment. But I got one for you also, and I'm waiting to see who jumps on it, which is energy security and the economics. If we actually turn our oil, our gasoline, and using natural gas, if we do that kind of energy change, which is easy to do, gas prices go down and the economy gets even stronger.
It's money in the pocket. Money in the pocket. People want money in the pocket, and conservatives were motivated in 2016 on the Supreme Court. Federal appellate court judgeships in the Supreme Court. People think it's geeky, not interested. My radio callers today were on fire about this retirement of Kennedy. And Schumer, et cetera, they're going to go to the mat. Let's watch Schumer today.
Our Republican colleagues in the Senate should follow the rule they set in 2016, not to consider a Supreme Court justice in an election year.
We will vote to confirm Justice Kennedy's successor this fall.
He's making such a huge mistake. If they don't vote for it now, every Republican across the country will vote to keep Republicans to control the Senate.
They're motivated on this issue, guys.
Exactly.
I want you both on radio. Tomorrow, next day, we'll be right back.